I am Ian Williams, President of the Foreign Press Association in New York, and today's briefing is with Tuvia Tenenbom, a member who has recently published a book, and we want to talk about the mechanics of the book, what you do when you're a journalist and you're trying to get published, and whether you go into ebooks, as Tuvia has. His book, has become the best-selling ebook in Israel and also in many European countries. He tells me some very obscure ones as well, but the countries, I mean, not the books. So I want to get moving on this. Your book's got quite a provocative title, hasn't it? I presume that was deliberate, since obviously you've seen Borat and you are trying in some way emulating his shock value.
Not exactly. The book originally, the book was commissioned by the publishing company of Suka. It's the prestigious, I would say, German publishing company. It's one of the most important German publishing company, and it came out in German under the title Allein unter Briten. This is the 5th book in a series of Allein unter. It came out in print and in ebook and in whatever you want it, but basically, this is a 5th book in that series. And there was a first fall Allein unter Deutschen, alone among the Germans, then Allein unter Juden, along among the Jews. This is about the Israelis and the Palestinians. Then Allein unter Amerikanern, that was the book about America, a journey across America. Then it was Allein unter Flüchtlingen, alone among the refugees. That's about the refugees who came from the Middle East and other places, to Germany. And then last year it came the book Allein unter Briten, and it came out in different languages. It came out in Hebrew, where it became the best #1 ebook bestseller of the country. It came out in how do you call it, in Czech Republic. Over there it's called Her Majesty's Rats. And it came out in, now it just came out in English under the title that you just said, The Taming of the Jew. Usually the titles in different languages are different titles, but the commissioning party is the how do you call it, the Germans. And what happened is, because of COVID, of course, we had a little problem. When the book was published in Israel, it was just before COVID, so it became a huge bestseller. And when it came in Germany, when it just got to the bookstores in February 2020, it came to the bookstores. And the moment it came to the bookstores, it basically 3 days later, the bookstores closed down because of COVID. So our all book tourney, all the book tour, so to speak, had to be cancelled just in the beginning. We had like only 2 or 3, and usually we had like many book events. And the same in America. It just came in America, and basically there's no chance yet to do any book events. But the book is available not just as an ebook; it's also available as a print version, of course. The title.
So the English version is available in print?
Yeah, available in print. Yeah, of course. It's available in print and it's available in ebook.
Well, we should explain to the people who aren't theatre mavens like you that The Taming of the Jew is a reference to Shakespeare, of course. Taming of the Shrew.
And if you can see on the cover, it's also Punch and Judy. It's a take on, it's a cartoon kind of, but a take on Punch and Judy. If you saw the cover. The book is in Germany, come always on the title Allein unter, which means the books are decided what the title is because it's a series of books. It's the title is decided ahead before the journey, before anything happens. And the books in English, which come later on, the titles are based on what the content of the book, the finding of the book. So the title of the English books are basically based on what the book is about. What is the main finding of the book? Well, the title in German, for example, it's a totally different ballgame.
Well,
The title, the title, The Taming of the Jew, came after the book, after the journey. And this is a result of the finding of the book. And what is the finding of the book? Normally, the way it goes, the Surkamp Publishing Company is commissioning the books, and they say to me, for example, go to Israel or stick around in Germany or spend your time with the refugees, or spend some months in Germany or spend some months in Britain, and next year come up with a book. There's no other conditions, there's no other things, because it all depends on what you find. I mean, I am lucky that that my publisher, the same way with its site, which I write for them also. I just came back from Russia. I was 30 days in Russia, and to write a feature article, it's about 6,000 words. And it's the same thing, the editor says, Tuvia, would you like to go to Russia? Spend some time there and write about it. And so there is never before, we don't talk about what the article will be or what the book will be about. It's just go there and come back with an article, and please bring some photos with you. And that's basically the way it works.
That's sort of interesting. Like you go, is your Russian book going to deal with anti-Semitism in Russia?
The Russia is not that was not a publishing company. That was the site, the paper. It's like the New York Times of Germany. The
sure,
site
I know,
of Germany.
Yes.
New York Times of Germany. It's like, and that was for a 6,000 word article. It's like a big article. I mean, the site is a broadsheet. It's an actual paper, of course, and it's like really big, and you have like 2 pages full of one article. Usually you don't have such long article, but this is what I do with them. I go to a country and then I come up with 2 pages of an article, and so that is an article. If you talk about anti-Semitism, by the way, no, I did not find any anti-Semitism in Russia. I actually, when I went to Russia, and my editor first of all asked me, would you go to Russia? And I said to myself, why would anybody go to Russia? I mean, my feeling about Russia, or put it, my prejudice about Russia, was that they are, the Russian bear, that they are terrible people. They have no sense of humor. They just want to control the world. They have the biggest country in the world.
Russians have a great sense of humor, but they also reputedly have a lot of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and reputable, very anti-Semitic. And so why would I go to Russia? And Russia is when I write books, I must understand the language of the people. I must talk in the language of the people. When I write articles, it can be about anything. I don't have to. I write articles. These articles that I write for the site are based on what do you do if you come to a place, don't know the people, or maybe you know, maybe you don't, and what do you feel about it? So in Russia, I didn't even know Russian. I know very little Russian. So, but I said to myself, okay, I've never been to Russia. Why not go to Russia? So I went to Russia, and guess what? And after 30 days, I fell in love with Russia. I found a beautiful country. I found an amazing country, and I found an amazing people, very, very, very funny people. And I went there, it's COVID all over. I came from Germany. I just came from Germany, where everything is closed. All the restaurants have closed. You keep distance from people. You don't shake hands with people and all that stuff. But then I went to Russia, and the restaurants are open, the theaters are open. Of course, you can go to the Bolshoi, which I went. I went to theater. Restaurants are open, and people kiss you and hug you and laugh with you. And I ended up writing an article 180 degrees from what I thought it would be. It was one of the unique places in the world where I could go to a place and say, I am a Jew, and I was born in Israel. This is something that in most EU countries I simply cannot do, because I'm immediately being bombarded and criticized for whatever Mr. Netanyahu does. I mean, hello, or for just being Jewish. And so Russia is an example of a place I thought would be anti-Semitic, and I found it to be not anti-Semitic, at least from the perspective of the people that I met. I went to very rich
So you
places.
presented yourself as an Israeli when you went to Russia.
An Israeli as a Jew. Yeah, because I started
Because in
doing
Britain,
the
one
same
of
thing I
the
do all the time, because I also I live in Germany. I also live in Germany, so usually I say I'm from Germany. But when I said I'm from Germany in Russia, they didn't like it. They started criticizing Germany. So I said, okay, I am a Jew. I come from Israel. Oh yeah, we love you. It was
your adventures in Britain. You presented yourself variously as Austrian, German,
yeah.
Jordanian, all
Britain,
sorts of nationalities. I mean,
exactly.
the sort of seriously stretching of journalistic ethics here, because you were
Exactly.
unnecessarily going undercover.
I'll talk about it. I mean, in Britain, as much as I do when I go to any other European country or any other country in the world, I presented myself as a German. I live in Germany. I'm a German resident, by the way. I'm a journalist in Germany. I mean, my main journalism is in Germany. I am my publisher is German. You know, I write for my main audience, so to speak. At least the ones that I'm being paid for, you know, to the commission to do it, is German. So yes, I do have an American citizenship. I do have an Israeli citizenship, and I am a legal resident of Germany. You know, it's like a green card or whatever it is. So, and I found out during the years, I'm not doing it since yesterday. I'm doing it for many, many years, this kind of things. And I found out that if you say you are a Jew, there is already immediately a problem. And people don't like to talk to you, you know, and which is frightening, but it's the reality. So I say I'm German, and I am partly German. I'm not saying alone I am German. I say I am a German journalist, which is what I am, you know. And I don't disclose, you know, that I am Jewish, and I think that most journalists, as far as I know, you don't say hello. My name is John Smith. I am an atheist, or I am an American. You just say I am John Smith and I write for the New York Times or whatever it is. So I say, you know, I'm Tobias, which is the German Tuvia, and I write for the German media, and that's totally kosher from perspective of representing who you are. The main thing I have to tell people when I interview them is whatever you say can be immortalized on the paper, you know? And I record everything, I video the things. For example, went to Germany, like always, I went to my wife, which easy, she takes the pictures and other things. And then I have with me people, you know, video and sound people. And when you go to people, nothing is under, you know, no candid camera, everything is in the open. You know, the basic idea is you land in a country, you rent a car, and you start driving. And where do you drive? Wherever you feel. And everything is videoed. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, you know, from the time you land to the time you leave. So you want it to be as randomly as possible. So your finding will represent, you know, or be statistically correct. You know, so it's not anecdotal, but statistically.
I mean, one of the ironies here, speaking as British myself, I've been in America for a long time, but I'm very British, and you go and you're investigating anti-Semitism in Britain, and you come from Germany, and you don't find any in Russia, but you find it everywhere in Britain.
Yeah. Okay, but let me explain it. I don't go. I mean, when we talked about after the book about America came out, you know, A Line onto Britain, which is The Lies It Tell, as it's called in English, by the way. And we talked with my publisher and my editor in Germany, in Berlin. We had a session, we had a meeting, and I said, Tuvia, where would you like to go next? Usually they suggest where I should go. Now they ask me, where would you like? I said, okay, it was the height of Brexit. And I said to myself, okay, this is an historical time. You know, the Britain is about, maybe, maybe not, leave the EU. It's an historical moment. It's an interesting moment. I would like to cover that. And then I said to myself also, and I say to them, and I shared with them, I always loved British theater, mainly English theater. You know, many times I would go for years and years and years. I would just up on a plane, you know, and go to and drop in London, and go for a few days to see English theater. I mean, I think that the English theater, I always thought, is the best theater in the world. And since I'm a theater myself, I work with the Jewish Theater of New York, and I'm a playwright and the actor. I said, okay, here is a chance. Somebody's paying me for this, and I would like to go to this country and crack the secret, find out why and how that theater is so amazingly good, so amazingly convincing. That is the idea. That was the idea. The idea was not to find anything anti-Semitism. I'm sick and tired of finding anti-Semitism. I feel like a plumber, all the time has to deal with, dirty stuff. I don't want to deal with anti-Semitism. I want to find Brexit and I want to find theater. But actually the main thing, personally, selfishly, I wanted to find theater, but I said, okay, Brexit is an important time. That's the time to do both of them. That was the idea. And that's why I started actually in Dublin. I said, let me start in Dublin, so I can cross the supposed border, or whatever we talked at the time, between, on the island of Ireland, between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which is the biggest problem of how do you bring Brexit? How do you make Brexit? Do you put a border there? Don't you put a border there? So I said, okay, let me start in Ireland, cross through the border, see what it is, and then continue. And that's basically what I did. I started in Ireland, crossed into Northern Ireland whatever you call it, from South Ireland or from the Republic of Ireland into the north of Ireland or into Northern Ireland. I mean, it's like everybody calls it differently. And then from there, from Northern Ireland to Scotland, from Scotland to England, and from England to Wales. That's the idea. And the idea was not to write anything about Jews. But the funny thing is, from the moment I came, from the first interview, my first interview was in a hotel that in the lobby of the hotel, I interviewed an Irish guy, and I've never been to Ireland before. I never thought that Irish is anti-Semitic. It never occurred to me, because living in New York and knowing, Irish people, Irish Americans and Jews are getting along very, very well, even in the world of theater and the world of music, it's like, it never occurred to me, to talk about Jews in Ireland. Why should I talk about Jews in Ireland? But I was sitting with a guy, and I say, an Irish guy, and I say to him, my dear friend, can you explain to me anything about everything or anything you would like to tell me about Ireland? Because I don't know Ireland. I've never been here. Tell me, what should I know about Ireland? So I started talking about, about the troubles. We all know what that is. The fights and the bombs. Between the Unionists, the Republicans, and all the whole spiel over there. And then he said to me, we have been killing each other for God knows how many years, and we have the Good Friday Agreement for some time. We are still bombing each other here and there, and we still don't trust each other. We still don't get along with each other. But there is one thing we all agree on. And I said, what is it? He says, we are all anti-Israel.
Yeah, but they didn't say they were anti-Jewish. They said they were anti-Israel.
Right, and then I asked him why. And so he started explaining to me. He said to me, this is the history. One of the countries that sent condolences to Adolf Hitler, to the Germans at the death of Adolf Hitler. We did it. He started explaining to me.
That was Eamon de Valera, the president.
Yeah, of course.
In the meantime, 400,000 Irish were in the British Army fighting Hitler.
No question about it. And then we continue. And he talks to me, and he actually said to me, we don't like Jews. That's what it is. We are anti. And this was a frightening, shocking thing. First of all, why are you even involved in this issue between Israel and Palestinians? Why are you so deeply involved in it? And when I'm crossing to Londonderry, whatever you want to call it, crossing into Northern Ireland, you see all the flags, the Palestinian flags all over. When I ask people, why do you have these flags? And he says, yeah, pro-Palestine.
But in your book, you make it quite plain, and it's true that the Unionists tend to support Israel as against the Palestinians because they identify with the Unionists
Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. But I say, why do you identify only with these people? Why don't you identify with other people? Or why don't you identify with the Kurds in Kurdistan? I mean, there is something to identify with them. Do you care about what the Chechens went through? You know, to
well, there is a connection,
Russia.
which I don't know whether it was raised with you. I remember speaking
There-
about this. I remember speaking about this to the
there-
Irish ambassador to the
Yeah,
UN,
of course.
and he said,
Yeah.
I said, well, you know, why didn't Ireland recognize Israel and swap ambassadors? And he said, I told the Israeli ambassador to the UN that when you stop sending our boys home from Lebanon in body bags, we'll consider it. So
Yeah.
the Irish peacekeeping forces in Lebanon were sort of became profoundly anti-Israel, and that fed back. This is their one military operation.
Look,
and the treatment of the Irish troops.
on the mention
This is the explanation that came to me from Ireland.
No question, Ian. No question, Ian. But when you talk, when I talk to the Lord Mayor of Dublin, for example, I mean, what does he talk to me as an example of nice people is Hamas. Hamas is the example of nice people. I mean, everybody in the EU, every government in the EU sees Hamas as a terror organization. And I ask him, do you know that it's in their agenda, in their bylaws, so to speak? They say that we have to kill every Jew that you see.
No, that's the elimination of the state of Israel is in there, but not the elimination of Jews.
Yeah, no.
I've read this. It's
okay, I read it too.
I will not let go.
I read it too. I know the preaching. I mean, I don't know how much Arabic you know. I speak Arabic. بتحكي عربي? You speak Arabic?
أيوة.
أيوة. كيف حالكم؟
A little.
كل بخير.
أنا صحفي من بريطانيا.
أنا صحفي من بريطانيا. Okay. Okay. Now, I speak Arabic. I read Arabic, you know, and I can read what they say. I don't need anybody to translate it for me. And they quote the Quran. I mean, you can quote the Quran, you can quote the Bible any way you want. Not only in the Quran. Quran is actually a beautiful book, you know, but they quote the Hadith. There is Hadith. And they quote the Hadith in Hamas, in their pamphlet, in their, and it's on their website. If you know that the come will come, you know, and all the Jews will be killed, and the Jews will run away, and they will hide behind the tree. But the tree will call to you and say, hello, believer, a Jew is hiding behind me. Come and kill him. That's in the literature of Hamas. It has nothing to do with Israel.
Well, it's also, I mean, look, there's a question of relativism here. Half of American evangelicals think that the purpose of the end days is to gather all the Jews into Israel and then convert them.
Look, as I said, every religion,
these are religious superstitions.
Every religion is extremist. You know, Hamas is the extremist.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So do I support the extreme evangelicals? Of course not. Of course not. Did you hear from me anytime supporting this kind of view? No, I don't believe in Jesus. I'm not a religious person at all. And of course, I don't believe in Jesus, and I don't believe in the end of days, and I don't believe in this. You know, no question about it. But I am talking to you. Here is, you have an organization that is the extremist organizations. You know, I said, I will not criticize Islam. I am not one of those. I have read the Quran. I think it's one of the most beautifully written books. You know, I am not anti-Islamic. I mean, forget it. Just because I know it and I like it. I don't believe in it. I'm not a religious person.
I read the King James Bible all the time for the same reason.
No question about it. I can read English too. No question about it. But yes, and I said you can take out from the books, from the holy books, you can show the peace and love in the books. You know, every holy book, Quran also. Quran has many references to Jews that are very positive. You know, I mean, it's the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, who called the Jews the people of the book. Hello. Yes. But this Hamas doesn't see. It says in the Quran, if you really want to know, that Allah gave the Jews a land. This Hamas does not see. Hamas is an extremist organization.
Well, being an atheist, I'm not sure I take title deeds carved in marble.
But to support that, I'm just saying to you. And then I ask people, you know what? I have my doubts also. I'm a journalist. It's my job to know what the people think. And it's my job to know why the people support for example, the Palestinians versus the Israelis in a conflict that's far away, thousands of miles. So I talked to them, and they explained to me that on the other side of the Palestinians, there are Jews, and there are the scourge of the earth, the scourge of the earth. When I have people that I interview, I have it all on videos, British people who tell to my face, because you think they know me as a German journalist, and they tell me, people would go with bracelets that says on it, Free Palestine. And they tell me to my face that Hitler did not finish the job with the Jews. I have a problem with this.
I would have a problem with that as
This
well.
is not a, you see, this is what I say, it's not a political issue.
But
It's
one of
not-
the people who would have a excuse me,
I
one of
am-
the people who would
let
have
me
a
tell you,
serious problem
yeah.
with this.
Let me
One of
tell
the
you.
people who would have a serious problem with this, who I personally know, and you accused of or let's say you went along with, I think, spurious accusations of anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
was Jeremy Corbyn, who would totally agree with you about this, about Hitler and about Jews. He would immediately repudiate anybody who said anything like that. And yet you went along with the press hysteria from his opponents in the Labour Party that accused him of
But if you notice-
anti-Semitism.
If you noticed, if you read a book, I actually wrote very nicely about Jeremy Corbyn. I wrote about him that he's a warm person. I was impressed with his warmth. I liked him. I enjoyed his company. I actually wrote it in the book. I mean,
Yeah, no, I was.
I did not go
noted.
on. I did not go with this.
Even the Conservatives say that about it.
You have to remember, I'm not a conservative. You have to remember, I'm not a
The only
conservative.
people who don't say that about him are his opponents in the Labour Party, who
Yeah,
think
yeah.
he has horns and a tail.
I
And to some extent, you associate.
I actually liked him, and I wrote it in the books that I liked him. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I am not, I go to wherever the news is, and I try to find out. I wrote very nicely about Jeremy Corbyn, and then I met his buddy on the NEC board, and Rat Pitt,
Wilson.
Peter Wilson, and he said to me things that I couldn't believe. He basically blamed the state of Israel for, the Israeli embassy in London for planting a spy.
Sorry, but they
Party.
did. That was well reported in the newspapers, and there's a documentary.
I'm sorry. The documentary that was in Al Jazeera, it's totally false. It's totally not true. It's totally false. It's totally not true. And I don't.
The guy was on a video confessing what he was doing.
He's not the guy. Is he the guy who told 68 British rabbis, most of them reform, people who fight for equal rights to all people? Is it? That's what he claimed. That Israel basically forced 68 British rabbis to publish an article in the Guardian,
Israeli embassy
in the Guardian,
strict fact checking here. The Israeli embassy actually apologized for sending
it's not true. I actually
one of their agents.
I actually interviewed the Israeli ambassador. I'm sorry, I interviewed the Israeli ambassador. I interviewed him. Not every interview is in the book, but I did interview the Israeli ambassador. At the time, I went to the Israeli embassy and I actually interviewed the Israeli ambassador.
Well, and he denied that they had in the Labour Party.
He went crazy. He said, "What anti-Semitism this garbage is. We have never done something like that."
But they did.
I'm telling you, no.
They apologized.
I don't know that. I never heard that they apologized.
Did you see the Al Jazeera video?
Of course, I saw the Al Jazeera video, but do I believe the Al Jazeera video? No, I don't believe the Al Jazeera video. I don't believe Al Jazeera.
So they faked the footage
for me,
revealing what he was doing?
Al Jazeera for me is not a source for finding information. I know some people in the Al Jazeera. I was even interviewed on the Al Jazeera. When I was in Qatar, I actually tried to talk to them, to the Al Jazeera people, and of course they refused to let me entry. I was invited to Qatar, by the way, by the daughter of the Emir at the time, and Al Jazeera wouldn't, because they thought I would find out how to do the tricks. Al Jazeera is not a source of information. I'm sorry. It's a private network. It belongs to a sheikh. It belongs to one person, and they have an agenda. I don't accept Al Jazeera as a source of
And,
information.
and no other media network has an agenda?
Look, I rely on BBC. You come from Britain. I think
I don't rely on the BBC anymore. I'm
okay,
sorry.
okay. You rely on Al Jazeera, not on BBC, so you have a problem. You know, I read religiously every day The Guardian. You know, they have an agenda, but they are at least true in what they say. This is our agenda. They don't hide it. That's what I respect in how do you call it, in The Guardian. They say, tell you what their agenda is, you know. And
I don't think they have done lately.
But I respect that. If you say you have an agenda, if it's climate change or whatever it is, and you say it, I have no problem with you. That's called work like a news media. Al Jazeera is not a news media. I'm sorry. If Al Jazeera report, it's not like, you know.
Coming back to my old chum, Jeremy Corbyn, one of the things that you come to towards the end, you share my low opinion of the group of Labour MPs who defected just before they were thrown out, who had not raised this issue until Jeremy Corbyn was in power. Margaret Hodge, Luciana Berger and the others. And they suddenly discovered massive anti-Semitism when he was the leader, which they hadn't detected in all of those years in the Labour Party.
Yes, that's why
he became leader and they detected.
That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons the book is called, you know, The Taming of the Jew, because these people you are talking about, you know, like
Margaret
Luciana Berger or Berger, whatever your accent is, you know. I mean, it's like, where have you been all these years? I mean, how come you start criticizing Jeremy Corbyn only after you have been deselected? You know, you're not going to be any more, you know, these are Jews. And I say to them, hello, guess what? Luciana Berger, whatever, refused to give me an interview because this was my set of questions to her. Where have you been all these years? You are an MP. You are a Labour MP. Hello, where have you been all these years?
She was actually chair of the Labour Friends of Israel before.
You know what? But you know what? Yeah, I know. I met all these people. I mean, I met what's her name? The dame from Liverpool. You know, Louise
Ellman, yes, same.
And what's her name? Margaret Hodge. You know, it's like all of a sudden she's a big hero. You know, fighting anti-Semitism, and before that she didn't do anything. I mean, yes, I know. I called them for the hypocrisy. I called them out for the hypocrisy. I say to the leaders of the Jews, I mean, where have you been all these years? Where have you been all these years? If you think now that he's an anti-Semite, where have you been all these years before you have been deselected, or before you know that you have a huge risk? You know, your seat is in danger. Where have you been all these years? Why have you talked about it only after even the Guardian, you know, which is the left of the political map in Britain, you know, also criticized Jeremy Corbyn? Oh, now you feel comfortable to criticize Jeremy Corbyn because the Guardian criticized Jeremy Corbyn? Where have you been before? Jeremy Corbyn did not change. For better or worse, Jeremy did not change. Jeremy stayed all the time the same. You know, we know his views. If they are good or bad, we know his views all the time.
So now, what would you think if you...
This is what I say. So this is what I say to them. Why didn't you open your mouth before? I mean, this is one of my problems with the British Jews. You know, why don't you open your mouth? When I go to Manchester, you know, and I interview Hasidic Jews, Haredi Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews, you know, when I come, I tell them I'm a German journalist, you know. Most of the time when I ask them, is there any anti-Semitism? Because I heard it. Anything happened? You say, no, nothing. We get along very well with our neighbors. Nothing happens. We are very good. I went to an example in Manchester. I went to a kosher restaurant, you know, where I would find Jews who are looking like Jews because they have all these dresses, you know, all this costume, whatever you want to call it, you know. And I sit, there's a family next to me, father, mother, and children. And I asked them, is there any anti-Semitism going on around here? Did you ever encounter it? Did you ever hear about it? The father and mother say never seen anything like that. So I look at the boy sitting there, an 8-year-old boy, and I say, kiddo, are your parents telling the truth? And he says, no. Just recently, you're spelted with X. And then they start telling me the stories. What happened in Manchester? If you move away from the Hasidic community, from the area, with your kids. There are people who would grab the yarmulke, snatch the yarmulke, the skull cap from the little kid, you know, all kinds of things. And by the way, the people who are doing it are not Muslims. They are British people, white folks, not Muslims, not immigrants.
And not Labour Party
Before
members.
anybody starts, what I'm saying, what?
And
What do you
not
think?
Labour Party members either. I mean, nobody's going to deny anti-Semitism. Well, I'm not going to deny anti-Semitism in Britain.
Yeah, but the point
All the
is,
fuss was about the Labour Party and
Yeah,
Jeremy Corbyn.
and guess what? If you read a book, I said it's not about Jeremy Corbyn. It's not about the Labour Party. There are anti-Semites in the Tory party as well. There are anti-Semites in the people who are unaffiliated. There are anti-Semitism, you know, everywhere you go. And that was the bothersome thing for me. So much anti-Semitism that I found, and I didn't want to find it. I was not looking for it. I did not come to Great Britain to find that. I wanted to see theater. I wanted to see Brexit. That's what I wanted to find out. That's what I wanted to see.
But statistically speaking, let's look at your investigative technique.
Yeah.
You go to Jewish communities around Britain and you ask them about anti-Semitism, and you find it. This is a bit like a hammer finding a nail. Pretty.
No, it's not true. If you read the book again, you'll see it's not.
I read the book. Only finished it yesterday.
Okay. Very good. That you finished it. I hope you enjoyed reading it at least.
I was. Just there's one thing I have to, because time is coming short. You were in Liverpool, which is my home city.
Yeah.
And it has a distinctive reputation. You didn't mention the theatre there, where it's one of the jewels of the place. But more to the point, you talked about the Beatles, and you missed out. I mean, you've mentioned the Jewish connection with everything. You never mentioned Ringo Starr.
Well,
Richard Starkey, who was working class
during the editing process. The editing processes, you might know, because you have like, you write every day like 100 pages or whatever it is. You're just sitting at home after that, and you write. During the editing process, you have to take a lot of things out, and this is what I did. If I wrote everything that I found out in Great Britain, I will have a 10-volume book at least. So you have to edit them out, and look at this, for example, you are mentioning Liverpool. I gave a full chapter to the Palestinian owner, of the DoubleTree Hotel, and I let him tell his story from the time he was born to the present day. He's in Liverpool. I have been very nice, to this guy, and I've been very nice to many guys. And at no point did I accuse that guy of anti-Semitism. If you remember, I gave him so many pages to tell exactly his story. And at no point I accused these Palestinians, of being anti-Semite. And by the way, since you read the book, in all the book, on all the pages, 504 pages, I never accused the Muslims from being anti-Semites. No, even the NGOs that I found all across Britain, solidarity with Palestine and all these things, I found out it's not a Palestinian, not even a Muslim running them. They are white Brits running them. And I put it in the book.
But there's a implication that supporting Palestine equals anti-Semitism.
Let me finish. You accused me of something, let me finish. You talked about the hammer and the nail. No. I found anti-Semitism outside of the Jewish communities. When people talk to me, they felt comfortable to talk to this German and tell him how much they hate Israel. They have never been in Israel. They don't even know what Israel is. Some people ask a basic question. What is the distance between Jerusalem and Palestine? They have to take their iPhones to find out the answer. I mean, such a stupid question. They don't even know why they identified Palestine. And when I dug
deep. They don't teach geography in schools anymore.
What?
They don't teach geography in schools anymore.
I know, but the point is,
here or in Britain.
As a professor in London, told me, and it's in the book, and he said to me, Palestine, because I asked him, I interview people who are 18-year-old students. and he talked to me about Palestine. And I said to him, what is it? And he said to me, Palestine is a state of mind. That was brilliant. That's an English professor. Palestine is a state of mind. You don't have to know where it is. You don't have to know what the real issue is. You just have to check a V. Palestine, climate change, boom, boom, all these things you have to check.
You could say the same thing about Zion, couldn't you?
About what?
Zion.
Zion.
Glorious things of thee are spoken, Zion. I mean,
look,
for several thousand years, it was a state of mind.
Zion, okay. Zion, the people talk about Zion, you know, the fact that, you know, today you have some evangelical Christians who talk about Zion, you have to remember it's a new phenomenon and it's going to go away.
Oh, Martin Luther's not a new phenomenon. He was big on Zion.
Martin Luther, look what he said about the Jews.
Exactly.
Look, he's one of the biggest anti-Semites, and I can remind you. I mean, even the evangelical community. I mean, a generation ago. I mean, even Billy Graham, if you remember the conversation he had, which had been released like a year or two ago with Richard Nixon, the president, American president at the time, and Billy Graham. I mean, basically one of the founders of how. They
were profoundly anti-Semitic in their attitudes. I agree with you.
He was profoundly anti-Semitic. I mean, Richard Nixon. So I mean, the people who have been mentioning Zion all this time. I'm not talking about the Mormons, you know.
It was a state of mind for them. Okay. It wasn't.
No. It's not for the Jews. For the Jews, I mean, I am Jewish and I can tell you what it is. I mean, it's like I don't need you to tell me what it is. Like you don't need me to tell you what it means to be Liverpool. You know, I can tell you what it means. Zion for me as a Jew. I mean, it is a place, you know, that it was the land of the Jews, and for generations and generations, for 2,000 years, the Jews did not have their homeland. They have been in Europe. And they have been suffering from anti-Semitism for 2,000 years. That's the reality. I mean, you cannot deny it. I mean, the Holocaust is not the only event, you know, of anti-Semitism in the world. You know, and they took 90% of my family before I was born, and they put them in crematoriums. I mean, you are talking about anti-Semitism. It is a 2,000-year-old story, and not just the British, I mean, the European mindset is anti-Semitic. I mean, for generations. I mean, the fact now that the so-called liberals or Europeans or whatever you want to call them, you know, say that Israel is killing little Palestinian children. I mean, we had it as a Jews for 2,000 years, you know, talking about the Jews who take little Christian children and kill them for the blood. I mean, hello. This is not new. Anti-Semitism is not new, Ian. It's not new. It actually, sometimes when I think about it, it's a miracle that you don't kill us again. At the moment, the fact that there's anti-Semitism in the world, you know, it's like you live in the Upper East Side, you live among Jews, and many Jews are here, and okay, everything is good, you know. You know, the religious Jews go, the things with all the custom or uniform, whatever you want to call it, nobody so stunts at them. And then you say, looks like good, but get out of the Upper East Side. Move away from the Upper East Side. Move away from New York City. Go to the world, go to Europe, go to Germany. I love Germany. My readers are German.
And
I know how anti-Semitic Germany is. And I've said it and I'll say it over and over till they get over it. I know how anti-Semitic Germans are. I know. I was one time, I'm not going to mention names, I'm not going to share location. It was Christmas, just before Christmas, a Christmas party, but by one of the most liberal papers in Germany. And I was invited. And I came as a journalist, I was invited. And then the chief chef redacteur, the editor-in-chief sees me. And he says, Tuvia, what are you doing here? Would you mind coming out with me? I want to talk to you. Please, we are going out. I said, of course, I'll come with you. And he says, Tuvia, I don't know who invited you. I have nothing against it. I like you, I like your writing, I like everything. But please, you must promise me one thing. When the night is over, you're not going to go home and write an article about the Nazis you found inside. I said to him, what are you talking about?
About the what you found inside?
The
Sorry?
Nazis, the Nazis,
The
the
Nazis.
neo-Nazis,
Okay,
neo-Nazis, the Nazis you find inside. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Tuvia, please stop it. You know what I'm talking about. I said, in your paper, in your media, I mean, it's like, it doesn't, they're the most liberal there are. He said, Tuvia, cut it. Please cut it. You and I know. You and I know the truth. Please promise me. I said, okay, I promise you. And I kept my words. I found anti-Semitism inside. I found it. People drank and talked. And they know me. And they called me Jew. The most liberal of the liberals. But I gave my words to that guy, and I never reported it. Hello, anti-Semitism is alive and well.
Yeah, it's part of just
and it's part of the European culture, and it's part of the British culture. And I'm sorry it is part of the British culture because I like the British.
When you went to Northern Ireland,
what?
When you were in Northern Ireland, you must have recognized the bigotry. I was told I was okay because I was a Protestant atheist. It was these Catholic atheists he couldn't stand.
Yeah.
By one loyalist. And there's an old joke about the mugger in Northern Ireland that says, "What are you?" And the tourist says,
"Yeah,
I'm Jewish. Are you a Catholic Jew or a Protestant Jew?"
Exactly.
Says the voice. I mean, there's a free-floating bigotry that comes about here. It transfers across as well. I mean, I was brought up. The other thing you might mention about Liverpool is it replicates Northern Ireland's problems. There are large loyalist communities that have orange lodges every year and celebrate doing down the Pope.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this is a free-floating bigotry, which I'm not defending in any way, but I am explaining and accepting. It gets transferred to politics and football teams, as you might have noticed.
Exactly, yeah.
So we're coming here. We're coming towards the end, and I was a bit disappointed. Since we could tie the threads together, well, I met. Did you? Well, we'll forget him. There was a Labour MP in Manchester who was a patron of the Royal Exchange, one of the founders.
Yeah.
And he was accused of anti-Semitism by the Board of Deputies. He had previously been on the Board of Deputies, and he was Jewish.
Yeah.
And he said that his mother, who had escaped the Holocaust, would not countenance what the Israeli occupation forces were doing. And for that, he was pretty much hounded out. He's dead now, unfortunately. But the Royal Exchange there, and you know, it's a shame that you didn't.
Look, I tried to cover from whatever it is. I met many people. I didn't write the book, and I tried to cover it from every. I mean, I try to do it in order that it will be truthful and honest statistically from the voices that I heard. I couldn't put everyone. I put representative voices from the voices that I heard. And I did find the big anti-Semitism. I find a big problem. I mean, it's like, look, and I've said it to many of them. I mean, do I justify everything the Israeli state does? Of course not. Do I justify everything any country does? Of course not. Do I justify everything Biden does? Of course not. Do I justify anything, Trump does? Of course not. Do I justify everything Obama does? Of course not. Do I justify anything Angela Merkel does? Of course not. Do I justify anything the EU does? Of course not. I mean, go find the righteous people. I mean, it's almost against our nature to be righteous. I mean, we are human beings. I mean, it's like we are not angels. We are not saints. None of us is. So and I just ask people. I mean, the question: if people ask me, and I stop a person on the street in Britain, and I say, with that, by the way, I have to be straight here. With the exception of Wales, I didn't find much anti-Semitism in Wales. By the way, don't ask me why. It's a small country, but I didn't find. They are too busy with rugby, to think about Palestinians or Jews or whatever.
Williams is a Welsh name, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My name.
So there you go. I mean, it's like, and I ask people why do you care about this issue and not about any other issues? Okay, let's say you are right everything about what you say about the Palestinians. There are other people. I mean, China is putting like 1 million Muslims to hell. I mean, basically, it's raping the women. I mean, we know this story. Does it bother you? Do you go to demonstrate about it? Does it bother you? No, it doesn't bother him. Does it bother you this and does it bother you that? I talked to fellow journalists. Does it bother you what happens in Turkey? I mean, our fellow journalists are rotten in jail. How often do we talk about that? If we only talk about that,
quite a lot about.
I'm saying in general, how often we talk about that? How often, as far as we talk about Palestinians all the time.
This is not a good defense of.
The question. No, it is.
Whataboutery is what I call it.
It is.
Because you often get leftists who say you can't talk about China because America is doing this. Look, you can't talk about.
I wanted my wife. We are in Jordan. We are in Amman the other day, and I wanted to go to a refugee camp. Al Wahdat.
To where? Sorry.
Al Wahdat. It's a refugee camp in Amman, and I wanted to visit the place. So I asked our Jordanian friends or colleagues, let's go together. Let's see Al Wahdat. And the Jordanian said, no, you cannot go to Al Wahdat. We don't go to Al Wahdat unless you want to come out with a coffin. And we don't want to come with a coffin. I said, okay. So I took a taxi. I went to Al Wahdat. I spent time there to see thousands and thousands of Palestinians living in that refugee camp. They all live in a small room. They have only one room that, serves as a toilet, as a living room, as a sleeping room, as everything.
And in general, they're not anti-Semitic.
Just a second. And I, the Jew, when I left, I was crying like a baby. I was crying for the Palestinian people. I fell in love with them. And there was a little girl that came with us after that, holding the ends, as she walked out. She wanted out with us. It was heartbreaking. And I wrote about it. And I tried to get some organization to help those people. The organization talked about Palestine. None of them did anything because those Palestinians, they don't care about, because those Palestinians have nothing to do with Jews, because the one who tortures them are not Jews, but Jordanians. It's all fake thing about Palestine.
No, I do point out in my various writings, the Syrians have killed more than the.
I know. Look what happened on Al Yarmouk now. Look what happened with this whole area of Al Yarmouk. I mean, who bombed it out of existence? Arabs.
But that's the danger of whataboutery. If you say we can't talk about this one because somebody's doing something else.
No. You can talk about everything. I mean, please talk about Palestine as much as you want. But please, this is not the only issue in the world. There are many issues in the world. That's all I say. I never ask people. I say, if you criticize what happens to the Palestinians and you criticize what happens to the Muslim in China, if you criticize what happens with the Kurds, if you criticize what happens in Turkey, if you criticize what happens in all these places, then I'm okay with you. I'm on the same boat with you. I'm willing to go to the water with you. But if the only place you criticize is Israel, I have a problem with this.
The only place, yes.
That's all I said. If it's the only place you criticize, and that's what I found walking along and driving along Britain, the only thing on their mind was Israel. And that's the problem. If that's the only issue in the world that you find something is wrong there, I have a problem with that. I don't have the problem per se because you care about the Palestinians. Please do. I care about them too. I mean, nobody forced me to study Arabic.
We're hitting the clock now, but it's a good point to end. Is that we are equal opportunities, anti-oppression and repression.
That's the way we should be. That's the way we should be. And always remember that we are just human beings, and we have to be fair and honest as far as we can be,
Jamie, have you got our titles ready to go? This is Ian Williams from the Foreign Press Association in New York, and I've been engaged in a spirited discussion with Tuvia Tenenbom about his book, The Taming of the Jew. So,
thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody who's listening, and lots of luck and lots of success.
Thank you, Tuvia. Bye.
Welcome, my friend. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
You cannot keep me down. I won't fall to the ground. I'll struggle on for 10 long years. I'm out the other side crystal clear. I'm made from the same stuff as you, blood and bone through and through. Now